Well, good afternoon. Thank you for joining the webinar today. Today we're going to talk about CADTALK, Artificially Smarter Engineering, and what we do and how it can benefit your manufacturing organization in transforming your bills of material from CAD or PLM, PDM applications into a format usable within your ERP system for not only bill of materials, but also your manufacturing routings, with item creation, inventory, stock code creation, etc. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dig into the presentation today. So what do we do at CAD Talk? We solve an age-old problem. There are, and have been on the market for years, a number of CAD applications, Autodesk, SolidWorks, you name it. Great systems, and through the years, many of them have developed some pretty powerful bill of material plugins, so that you can design new parts or make edits to existing parts. The problem is that there are very few ways to get that engineering bill of material into a format usable within your ERP business system because it's just not easy. It's not simply a matter of linking or copying over the bill of material into the manufacturing ERP system because you're missing a lot of information that a CAD system doesn't need. You're missing things like labor operations. You're missing um, calculations for setup or run times, um, identification of the correct vendor or item code for a particular new item that you're creating in the ERP system. And we've solved this problem. We're one of a handful of products available in the world today. I say handful. There's probably 3 companies that do something similar to what we do. And then there's some others that are very specific. Um, we take that bill of material, we convert it, transform it using artificial intelligence into a format that makes sense for an ERP business application. Um, and that, at the end of the day, is going to save you a lot of time and a lot of frustration. And we're going to take a look at how we do that. A little background on who we are. Some of you attending the webinar today probably have no idea who CAD Talk is. Um, we were founded by former manufacturing engineers that had the same problem that you have today. You design parts, you update existing part records in CAD, and then you have to go make those changes within the ERP software. And they thought that there had to be a better way, and they went ahead and they designed CAD Talk. One of the advantages I think we have is that not only do we understand the CAD side because of our heritage as manufacturing engineers, but we also have decades of experience working with ERP. So we kind of have the best of both worlds here. The product itself has been available for about a decade and is used by hundreds of global users. In fact, it is installed currently on 5 different continents. Real quick, just a little more kind of background on us, since many of you are newer to CAD Talk. Hop on out to capterra.com. It's one of the largest directories of business applications on the planet, and look at our CAD Talk profile. There are real user reviews of the products. You'll be able to see what customers are saying about us. You can see overall the ranking is pretty darn high. And the one we're most proud of is the customer service there with a 5 out of 5. In addition, we have one of our customer quotes here. This is Rob Ross over at Cleveland Price out of the Pittsburgh area. And he says, CAD Talk has been an irreplaceable tool in helping us handle a significant increase in the amount of bill of material data we've been required to process over the last several years. And we're going to show you how we can do the same thing for you and your process. As mentioned earlier, we integrate to pretty much anything out there. Most of your major ERP products, if we don't integrate to them today, they are on the docket for integration. But certainly we integrate to many of the most popular products on the market, Infor, Sage, Oracle, Microsoft, you name it. In addition to that, we integrate with 30 plus CAD, PLM, or PDM applications, and we do maintain all these integrations to make sure that every time any one of these publishers comes out with a new version, that our software continues to work seamlessly with that new version. So, pretty easy business case here. The process of moving from engineering into manufacturing for a new item or a major revision to an item can take a lot of time, right? You've got to go and actually create the items, the inventory records, you have to create the bill of material, you have to set up the operations. All that takes a lot of time. We shrink that time down by about 80%, making it so much easier for you to do handoffs, large and small, between engineering and manufacturing. Why is the bill of material so important? Because the bill of material is really the hub of everything in manufacturing. You get a bill of material wrong, or you get the routing wrong, your scheduling is going to be impacted. You could be buying the wrong revision of a part. You could be buying the wrong part if an engineer put the wrong part in. Maybe it's an obsolete item. It's going to affect all of your planning down to your labor planning. It's going to have an impact on quality. Certainly, your customers don't want to get the wrong parts built to the wrong rev levels. So everything is connected. It's going to affect costing. Really, everything within manufacturing is affected by the bill of material. So incredibly important we get that right. One of the pieces we're not going to show you today, but I want to make sure you're aware that it exists, is an optional module called Design for Manufacturing. And what this does is it allows you to see ERP data from within CAD so that you know that you're working with an item that is not obsolete, that you're working with the correct item, that everything is set up properly. It's making your data that much better so that when we go to do the transformation, to create it into a format for ERP, there's going to be a lot less errors for you to resolve. And it's just some of the screens on what that Design for Manufacturing module looks like. You'll see right within this case SolidWorks, but this would be with any of your major CAD applications. You'll be able to see ERP data. For example, over on the left, you'll see we have an item code, an ABC code, a costing method, costing type, source, product code, unit of measure. All that information exists within the ERP. But you don't have to log into the ERP. You don't have to consume a license for that ERP. You can see all that data right within the CADTALK interface. So let's go ahead now, and we're going to switch over and do a brief overview demonstration of CADTALK and show you the product. And then we'll come back and wrap up with some questions and answers.
Today we're going to do a demonstration of CADTALK. CADTALK is a bidirectional integration between your CAD, PDM, PLM systems and the ERP. So the idea is that we take data from the CAD, PDM, and PLM systems and transform it from the engineering bill of material into manufacturing bill of material that the ERP requires in order to do the manufacturing and production. We do have a bidirectional interface, so we can actually go back and forth between the CAD and the ERP. Today I'm actually going to demonstrate one CAD system. We actually work with all major CAD systems on the market. Today I'm actually just going to demonstrate SolidWorks. The actual use of the software is very much the same regardless of what CAD system you're using. So we'll actually start off with a very simple part here. This is gear shaft assembly, just a two-part assembly. I like to start off with that because it really makes it simple to understand and easy to follow what's happening when this is all new for you. And then we'd like to move on to a much more complex example, which is a Sea-Doo scooter that you see here. So this is a larger, probably 40-part assembly with multiple levels. And another thing to note is that first assembly, the gear shaft assembly, is actually a sub-assembly of this assembly. So we actually get the idea of what it's like when I bring something in that's already existing in the ERP, as opposed to being all brand new parts, okay? What it's going to do is it's actually going to create any parts that need to be created that are new to this ERP. Then it's also going to update any parts that are existing with any changes that we make depending on the rules that we set up. When I mention rules, is a CADTalk actually has this kind of a expression AI engine, artificial intelligence engine, that it uses to figure out like how to convert between CAD and ERP. Now that engine can be configured using specific rules to the customer using like an expression engine that's very much like working with Excel functions. So you set up there's if-then logic, or there's inferences and things like that that can be set up, and we actually include that as part of the cost of the installation. So when you buy the product, the installation is included, and we set all that up for you. But it's not a custom version of CADTalk. It's actually just configured for your needs. All right, let's get started with the demo. Here's the CADTalk interface, and as you can see here, at the top toolbar, I've got all these different CAD systems. I've got Inventor and SolidWorks, and we also work with spreadsheets. So we support every major CAD system on the market: CAD, PDM, and PLM. So this is just a kind of an example of a few. Now this interface is actually what we call the standalone interface, which is actually used by someone downstream from the engineer. So we found that there's a couple different use cases for CADTalk, one being the engineer themselves using the product, and in that case we actually have the same interface that works inside of the CAD software, so the engineer can easily do this work himself. Okay, so the other use case is that the engineer doesn't really know anything about the ERP side and what's required and things like that. So instead of having him use it, or her, we're actually going to have someone downstream from the engineer use the product and actually read the CAD files and CAD data directly. Our integration doesn't require any CAD software to be loaded, so we actually can read CAD files directly. You'll see here I'll actually open up SolidWorks files directly from the drive and then read them and bring them into the ERP. Another thing to note is that we actually work with all the major PDM software. So today I'll actually open things up for my file system, but if you have SolidWorks PDM or Vault or any of the other PDM or PLM softwares, we can pull data from those directly as well. So this is just for demonstration purposes. I'm going to show the simplest case. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go ahead and say load SolidWorks file. I'm going to go ahead and grab that propeller gear shaft assembly. I'm going to hit open. And it's going to ask me which configuration that I want to open. This is a SolidWorks feature. I'm going to just pick one configuration here, say OK. And so what's happening is you'll see the parts kind of flash by. What's actually already done is it's read through the entire SolidWorks model, and then it also is speaking to the ERP in the background and asking it if anything exists and looking at that data. And then what it's doing is it's transforming the data coming from the engineering side, SolidWorks side, into a proposed bill of material in the ERP. So here you have the top level item, which is that assembly, and you have the two parts underneath it, which is there's the shaft and there's the gear. So the shaft and the gear come together in an assembly operation, which you also see an assembly operation here. This is the assembly operation inside of the ERP to make this assembly. So it's very intuitive here. You see this kind of hierarchical tree view that's showing you how the bill of material comes together. Back to the idea of this expression engine, one of the things I want to note is that the expression engine does things that are simple, like, hey, copy the description from the CAD model over to the ERP description field. It can do really smart things too. Also, like say, you know what? It says, I know that description coming from SolidWorks is really long, and it's not going to fit into my field in the ERP. So I need to break that up across multiple fields maybe. And it even knows to like break it up, but not necessarily in the middle of a word. It'll actually break it up in a space between two words. So that's kind of an example of where the AI engine is very smart at figuring out how to bring that data over. Another thing to note is that this assembly operation actually does not exist inside of the SolidWorks. The AI expression engine's figuring that out. It says, you know what? I know that's an assembly coming over from SolidWorks, so I need to do something with that. So I'm going to go ahead and add an assembly operation to this routing because I know that they're going to need to assemble this on the manufacturing side. So it's making that inference about data that's in the model to figure out what's required for the ERP. We can configure how it figures that out using those same rules that I spoke about earlier. They can be configured for your installation. This is a full editor. I have access to anything I'd like to do inside of the ERP right in this editor. So if I want to change like the description on this part, I can just literally go in here and change that and change that description. I can edit every single field, including any custom fields that you've added to your ERP install. So it's a very, very deep integration with CADTalk. Features that you expect to be in here are here, so we can support notes and creating warehouses, all kinds of things that we can do out of the box with CADTalk. We actually have no customers who have custom installations of CADTalk or anything like that. They're always just configured for their use, but they're very full-featured and very deep integration. The same validation is also available in here as well. So if there was like a missing required field, like this product code, say it wasn't there, you see there's a little error here. It says, that product code's required. I got to have a product code to save this assembly. And the save button actually became disabled. If I wanted to change that, I can hit the drop down, and here's all those product codes directly from the ERP. So I'll go ahead and pick the product code that I want again, or I can search for it as well through the top. FG100 is the one I wanted. Finished goods. And hit that again. You'll notice that as soon as I tab off, it'll validate, and the icon will go away, and the save icon will become enabled. So once I have it the way I like it, all I've got to do is hit save, and it will actually create all 3 part numbers and that bill of material all at the same time. And it actually did it really, really quickly there. That's why everything turns green. So the red parts meant that it was new parts and new bill of material. And then the green means that everything I'm seeing here is exactly the way it is in the ERP. Let's take a look at that same item over the ERP. Okay, now we're over in ERP. So let's take a look at that same part. I'm actually going to do a search for CS06. Remove the filter here. And this will show me all 3 parts now over in the ERP. So here I've got the top level assembly. There's the shaft, and there's the gear. And you'll also notice that the part number, the descriptions obviously come over, as well as a picture of the part that is actually extracted directly from the solid model and brought over into part of the import. Now, if you don't want that, we can configure that not to come in, but this is a nice little add-on feature that you can see the parts directly inside of what they look like inside of the ERP, coming from the CAD models themselves. If we want to look at the bill of material view of that, we can do the same thing. So let's go ahead and open this up. ZS06-302 is my assembly. Say OK. And now you'll see here that I have there's my assembly, the assembly operation, and the 2 parts. Bill of materials also showed up inside of the ERP. Well, okay. So that's pretty interesting, but I mean, it's just a 2-part assembly, but just to kind of get the idea across of how easy it is to literally start with nothing in the ERP. And all you have is a SolidWorks model, and then bringing the entire thing in all at one time, ready for production. So we can go from nothing to something very, very quickly and get to the shop floor in record time. So I'm going to go ahead and do the bigger assembly to kind of show more the power of the product. Okay, so I'm going to load SolidWorks file. I'm going to grab the larger assembly. I'm going to pick the default configuration. I'm going to say OK. And this will take a little bit longer. You'll see down at the bottom left here, I've got the status going through, and it'll flash through all the parts as it's going through. I think there's like 40 or 50 parts. There's no limit to the number of parts that CADTALK can load or bring in at one time. We actually even have customers who do thousands of parts at a time. So we have a customer who actually makes semi-trailers, and they'll bring in the entire semi-trailer as one big load. Okay, so it'll take some time, but I mean, think about that compared to doing it manually. What would take you a week or 2 to do manually, they can do in several hours with CADTALK. You also can work with it as subassembly at a time. So sometimes, like, if people want to just do incremental releases and they want to release designs as they go, and then ultimately do the upper level design at the end, you can do that as well, because CADTALK's always reconciling against what's currently in the ERP. So let me go ahead and expand this, and you'll see this fully indented bill of material. So here you can see I've got multiple levels. I've got a drive assembly here, which also has another level for a gear train, which looks like this. And then you'll notice even further down, there's these yellow parts, and there's my gear shaft, my prop shaft assembly from my first time I brought it in. And it even recognizes that I changed that description from before. So one thing to note is that if I'd like, I didn't save that description back into the model, but it still remembers that the description was that way when I changed it last time. Now, if I wanted to, I could have written that back into the model, and then it would have came in the same way. The configuration of which one drives the data is really up to you. So if you want the data always be updated from the model into ERP, that's just literally changing the expression for the data coming in. If you want the ERP, retain the changes that you made over there before, and then just kind of like in this case, the description, like I did here, it retains the description if it's not a new item. Now, these rules can be changed at a field level. You could say, in the case of description, always come from SolidWorks. But in the case of product code, obviously, always come from the ERP. But we have super flexible rules for how this data gets brought over and how it's merged. So same thing. If I want to make any changes to this bill of material, I have the ability to make any change that I want. Changing any field. I have support for every single field. You'll also notice that there's fields that are yellow. What yellow fields means that it's actually tracking the changes from either the default, if it's a new part, or from the existing part inside of. So if there's something in CSI that's been changed, If it comes out and you've changed it as part of the mapping, it's keeping track of all those changes. They're also keeping track of everything in the changes pane here too. So even if you don't have things shown in the interface here, we also can see all the changes that have happened right over here in the changes pane. So it's actually giving me the original version and also what it is currently. So the original value and the current value. Same as before, once I'm done with everything, all I've got to do is hit save, and it will actually create every single item that it needs to create, as well as all the different levels of the bill of material all at the same time. So you think about this, if you had to do this by hand, this could take you several hours to enter all of the data in for each item and then enter each level of the bill of material, and it's all this routing steps. We're actually going to do all of that in one foul swoop. And just that quickly, that entire assembly has been saved over the ERP. Open CSO6-100, which is my assembly. And now you can see that I've got multiple levels of a bill of material. All those parts have now been created, and all the different levels of the bill of material are now in here ready to go. So once again, the propeller shaft assembly that I brought in, which is updated, there's any changes, but it also created any new parts in that same assembly that were already there. All right, well, that concludes the demo. Thank you for your time.
So wrapping up in summary, CADTALK is going to help you improve that manufacturing or engineering to manufacturing handoff by about 80%. It's going to reduce your purchasing mistakes. It's going to automate item and inventory creation, vendor selection inside the ERP. It does leverage artificial intelligence and rules to create your manufacturing routings, not just your bill of material. And a lot of our customers are getting an ROI in right around 3 months, sometimes a little sooner. So we think it's a pretty good product. We hope you agree. I have my colleague's information up on the screen, Rich Creech. He heads up our CADTALK sales. If you have any questions, you want pricing, want to schedule a personalized demonstration, reach out to Rich and he'll hook you up. If you want pricing, we do have 2 types of pricing available, whether that's subscription or purchase. Just really a matter of preference on which way you go. So with that, we're going to conclude the webinar, and I would like to thank you all for taking time out for the presentation today. We did make a recording, and we will make that available to you to share with friends and colleagues. Take care, and we hope to see you on a webinar here very soon. Bye-bye.